Right, oh, it's right here, this whole packet. There's probably duplicates in there.
Oh, okay.
The agendas were sent out earlier, and so hopefully everybody has one. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, and the bylaws of the town of Becket. The decision to issue a special permit requires a minimum of 4 positive votes from a 5-member board. The board has 90 days to make a decision after the closure of the public hearing, and 14 days to file paperwork with the town clerk once the decision is made. Any appeal to the decision can only be made to the courts and must be made pursuant to Section 17, Mass General Law, Chapter 48, as amended, and must be filed within 20 days of the date of the filing of the decision with the town clerk. Let me go on here. Okay, with me tonight, well, my name is Bob Ronzio. I am the chair of the planning board. Sitting to my immediate left is Al Blake. Okay, Al Blake is the clerk pro tem, seated and out of sight from you guys. Across the room is James Levy, who is the vice chair. Seated across from him and walking back and forth, Jesse Perotti as our administrative assistant. Sitting to my right is the vice chair, I'm sorry, is and the clerk, Ann Kraut. Okay, missing right now is Dr. Lerner, okay, who I talked to a couple minutes ago. And
there he is.
There he is.
There he is. Okay, so he's here. I don't guess Gail LaBelle. What?
She clicked them.
Oh.
All right, she clicked them. So Gail LaBelle, okay, is she up there?
He hasn't come in yet.
She hasn't come in yet.
Here's Howard.
Okay, so Howard, you're here, and hopefully Gail will be able to call in.
She did get a link earlier.
She did get a link, so she's good there.
I sent it. I didn't talk to her.
As chair, it is my responsibility under the provision of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, subsection 20, to ask if anyone in the audience is going to be making a video or an audio recording of the session and to transmit this meeting
Right now,
through
I
any
have
medium.
2 people saying that they're going to record.
Okay.
Mike Goodenough and Terry Cavill.
All right.
Is anyone else going to be recording?
All right. The last meeting, there was a recording that was put up on on YouTube, and it was available for anyone who wanted to check listen to the minutes from the last meeting. I believe it was 2 hours and 16 minutes. Am I correct on that, Jesse?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I didn't
Okay.
really.
Well, I think that's how long the last meeting went.
Goes on.
All right, as chair, it is also, you guys are recording, so, you're placing your equipment wherever, since this is all being done remotely. Let's see. So, as part of that same law, I want to inform all the attendees that no person shall address the board without requesting to be recognized by the chair, and everyone should be silent. And I think everybody will be, because we've pretty much have everybody on mute. Anyone who is disruptive, there's no one here, so I can skip over that. So we can just move right on to the next part, which is the reopening of the public hearing that was continued from the February 9th, 2022 meeting. Brian Vincent, on behalf of Tetrahydra LLC, is again seeking relief from subsection 6.8 of the Becket zoning bylaws to operate a Tier 11 marijuana cultivation facility. And so at the last meeting, he was asked some questions, and he redid the plan that was submitted. And so that plan has been posted online, and it's here before the board members tonight. And so the first thing I'm gonna do before we get the public involved is to have him give us a summary of what has taken place on the plan. So those who haven't seen it will be able to hear what changes were made, okay? So Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So you have me, Mike Goodenough's on. We have Steve Mack from Foresight, and then we also added Attorney Sleen from Lights and Wheaton to join us tonight.
All right.
So what we did is, per the discussion of last meeting, we removed the outdoor field, and then we just added a parking space up there to give us the required parking to meet the bylaws.
Okay.
And then we also you asked for the elevations of the building, which we sent in.
Right. So the elevations were also included in this, okay? And I think it wasn't mentioned at the meeting, but I checked the dimensions of the well. I wanted you to check on that. I'm sure that the well placement, which is at the front of the plan, just off Quarry Road, is between the fence and the building, is now 30 feet. I don't think it was marked quite clearly before, but I believe you changed that. Is that correct? Because I've looked at the plan. I mean,
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so good. So, Brian, are you going to continue now, or?
No, those are the only things we made changes to.
Okay, does Steve Mack need to basically go over any of that, or?
Unless you want him to, I don't think it's very necessary.
Okay, if that's your presentation, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically open the meeting up to the attendees tonight, and I don't know whether Mitch Greenwald is going to be speaking for anybody, or which he did last time. So I will address I will ask him what his plans are tonight before we get into, start opening it up to just the general population. Public. Mitch, can you hear me?
Mitch, you want to unmute?
Can you unmute, Mitch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All
Can you
right.
hear me?
Yep.
All right.
Before you proceed, just so that you know, we did have the sound system here at Town Hall checked out, and they discovered that there was an error. There was the software in the program was flipping back. And so at the last meeting, it was somewhat difficult for you guys to hear. We had to sit in a certain location or stand in a certain location. But I believe that's all been rectified. So hopefully, you can hear me clearly, and I certainly can hear you clearly.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm admitting someone on the phone. I just want to find out who they are. Someone that was just admitted with a telephone ending in 1004. Can you let me know who you are, please?
Might be Fred Braun.
I saw Fred logged in earlier.
It's Mark Pillinger. It's Mark Pillinger, I believe.
Okay.
Mark Tillinger, can you hear us? Unmute yourself, okay? So Jesse can put your name into the computer.
What is it? Is it star? What's the keyboard command for him to be able to unmute himself?
I think it's star 9. I don't have it on my agenda. Normally I have it on the agenda. It's either star 6 or star 9. I can't remember.
Is he there?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the command is. I didn't put it on the agenda like I normally do.
Oh, well, let me look at a previous agenda.
It was on the last one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in the meeting. I can't talk.
Oh, God. everybody have the last agenda? And usually have everything.
Yeah. You would.
Oh, boy. Always a glitch. Not on this one either, huh? Can you find it?
No, not yet, but so many papers.
I know, that's part of the problem. I got a ton of them myself, okay.
Star 6.
Star 6?
Thank you.
Thank you. That's what Jesse said. All right, she thought it was either star 6 or star 9. So if that individual would hit stars.
This is Mark Pillinger. I just got unmuted.
Oh, okay, you're unmuted. Okay, so Jesse stepped out of the room.
Star 6.
It's coming back as soon as she gets. It was star 6, Jesse, and you were right. So he's in. Mark is in.
Okay, I'm just gonna, and that was you, Mark? On the phone?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't see where he went.
He-
Oh, there it is.
He's right, yeah, he's right there, okay. All right, so, Mitch, I'll get back to you since you had the floor.
Thank you, sir. Among the people that I'll be speaking for, I'm just going to give a few names because I'm not going to use all that time. Barbara Kopp, Ophir Sharvey, Barbara Mandler, Jeanette Katz, Dan Schur, Lori Friedman, Thomas Markovitz. Is that enough for now? That gets me.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I just, our agreement has been that, if you're speaking for them, just so that we don't, confuse the matter later on and run out of time.
I don't think
They wouldn't be speaking. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I sent you another letter. I trust Jessica gave it to you.
Yep, it's in the
Yep.
packet. So
Yes, I have it.
I'm going to just try to touch on those things that we didn't discuss the last time, except
Okay.
maybe to emphasize. First of all, contrary to statements that some folks made at an early hearing, in which I was not present, it is absolutely not true that the applicant has a right to do this. The applicant, this is not a by right use. I think the board understands that, but I need to emphasize it because statements have been made to the contrary. There's absolutely no right to do this without planning board approval. And there's no presumption that a person applying for this kind of use has a right to get it approved. There's a lot of factors for the board to consider. And I'll review some of those in a minute.
We're going to let them continue.
Secondly, it's not true that certain things that the CCC controls are not within the purview of the board. The Cannabis Control Commission has regulations, and one of them says marijuana establishments shall comply with all local rules, regulations, ordinances, and bylaws. Nothing, and that's 500 CMR 170. And furthermore, local oversight and regulation that does not directly conflict with the CCC regs is not prohibited. So all the issues we've raised are things that you have the power to deal with. And finally, just as a preliminary matter, the HCA doesn't prevent you from considering matters discussed in the HCA. And in fact, the HCA is explicitly subordinate to any town rules or permits. And I would be happy to answer any questions about that if anybody has them. All right, moving along. There are a number of places in your bylaws where the needs of the neighborhood are expressed as a major focus of your bylaw. Section 681 says the placement of marijuana facilities establishments shall be, quote, in suitable locations, unquote. And that the use of the bylaw shall be consistent with community and neighborhood concerns. There's that word neighborhood, suitable locations. And finally, the special permit criteria, which you consider in every special permit case, require you to consider neighborhood character and social structures, as well as impacts on the natural environment. These are all things that could lead you to say, whatever the benefits of this project, there's other things that are more important. And because there's absolutely no right to do this, you have the right to strongly consider and weigh all those factors. And in weighing them, I think you should consider that virtually the entire neighborhood, one way or another, either in writing or by speech, has expressed opposition to this project. That alone should be enough to deny this application. Let's move on to odor. Your bylaw says any emission that leaves the property has to be subject to immediate cleanup and correction. The applicant's given us no details at all about this. And even if they had, which they didn't, the wise course would be to get an independent consultant to verify this, because there's a lot of slips possible, to use the hackneyed expression, between the cup and the lip here. Whatever technique they have might not catch everything. Anything that gets out might not be destroyed before it leaves the property. Lots of technology exists to deal with these things. A lot of it doesn't work. How do you judge it? If the applicant has similar facilities using the same techniques, you can look at that, but we haven't heard anything about that. You can't judge it in place because they don't have anything in place. What a consultant would do is look at the technology, where it's used elsewhere, and tell you what it's going to do and what it's not going to do. With respect, neither you or I have the expertise to do that without consultants. We've engaged a consultant who may be trying to send you another report right now, but in fact, I think she just did send it at 6:19 p.m. Jesse, I don't know if you have access to that or not, but it basically just reiterates what was said before, that there's insufficient data for any conclusion to be drawn about whether the little bit that the applicant has told us about the rodent control techniques are going to work. I did read that someone visited a hemp farm, or maybe a couple of you, in Connecticut. Some smelled odor, some didn't. And the wise course in that situation is to deal with the more sensitive receptors. That's why the rule says any emission has to be immediately dealt with. They aren't promising to do that, and there's no indication that their technology is going to do that. And if they're saying, trust me, which seems to be what they're saying on this or a number of other issues, what's the basis for that? What do we know about their other operations? All we know is generalities, not details. Have we done financial investigations? And we can't of this entity, of course, because it's brand new. But what about related entities? There's a number of easily identified related entities. And it may be true that the fact that they didn't pay taxes somewhere else doesn't bar them under the town bylaws from getting a permit. But that might be a factor, together with other factors that bear on financial responsibility, that we believe we've got a problem here. And what about their record in terms of preventing odor? We have other information, and I'm waiting for confirmation of it. Unfortunately, I don't have it yet. But we have other information that there's odor at least one of their other facilities that is escaping, that there have been complaints about it, and that they're in the process, quote unquote, of remedying it. We don't want there to be a process of remedying it. We want it to be remedied ahead of time so that it doesn't happen. And maybe this is a good point to note. These revised plans, we had them for like 2 business days. I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that. They were filed late last week. The public and us got access to them on Friday. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday were legal holidays. Far too soon to be closing a public hearing, if you wanted to do so, without the opportunity for much more public input and much more input from consultants, and without the opportunity for you to get a consultant and see what the consultant has to say, or maybe more than one. That, of course, would require keeping the public hearing open. Let's see. Stormwater management, all we can really tell from the new plan, our wetlands person says it doesn't change her conclusion that there's serious wetland issues here, which you need to consider, not just the Concom. I explained why before. I won't hit you with that again. But stormwater management, I think, is going to be quite different. We don't really know because we haven't seen a revised plan. It is clear that the stormwater plan will be different with no grow area. That stands to reason, and we don't have that. We don't have that. Nor do we have any information about, as a result of eliminating the grow area, what's going to change in the financials. One of the things that you got to look at is balancing the good against the bad. How does the town benefit from this? And that's certainly a factor you can look at. But how much is the town going to benefit from it? Do the numbers look different now than they did before? We don't know that. We haven't got any information. The impact study that was done relied on there being an outdoor grow area. It's all down the drain now, at least as I understand it. Our position is the project should be renoticed, but if not renoticed, at least the hearing left open for 14 days after the new material was filed to give people an opportunity to comment on it. You know, when initial notices are issued, hearing notices, the public is told you have the right to review these plans at town hall. And nobody's had a right to review these plans except for 3 days. Not enough time for anybody to go through complex material like this. And the visual impact, we didn't have any numbers before, none. And we didn't have any visual detail. Now we have a little visual detail, which looks like it's more or less boilerplate from Canada, which when originally filed had the wrong project name on it. What we can tell from what was filed is, we now know, it's close to 200 feet long, 200 feet, 2/3 of the length of a football field, and 24 feet high. That's a big visual impact. How is that going to look? What about the tree line? How's it going to look from the road? How's it going to look from the quarry? We have no idea. We have no artist representations, nothing that could tell you anything like that. And we should have that. To be responsible in terms of protecting the visual environment, which is part of your obligation, we need that. We don't have it. There's other deficiencies, even in the current plans, that I can't touch on. I don't have the expertise. You need to hear from other people that do. And I know some people will be speaking tonight, mostly lay people, although some of them knowledgeable lay people, and all of them knowledgeable about impacts on their lives. And we'd like the opportunity also to review the findings of any experts that you engage and any experts that other people engage. And frankly, we haven't seen impartial or outside experts engaged by the applicant either. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mitch. We appreciate your comments, okay? What I would like to do now is, continue on. I guess there probably, well, we have at least two hands raised up on the board.
Can I just get some clarification? I've got two John Lamberts on, and I just need to clarify who the other one is so I can rename them.
John Lambert, please unmute yourself and.
We had our security system interrupted us, so we had to reapply. So I believe there's only one.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I don't see the other one now. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you,
That solves that problem. What else, Jesse?
That was the only one that I had.
That's the only one?
The phone numbers I'm gonna have to call and get later. It'll just be easier.
Okay, let's see. I see, who's the person up on the top left-hand corner with her hand right?
That's Mike Goodenough and.
Is that Mike?
Mhm.
All right. Mike, do you want to speak now?
I'll wait until the end, boss. I
You'll wait till
apologize.
the
I'm
end?
trying to
Okay.
lower my hand. I'll hold till the end.
All right, we're good. We recognize that. Okay, next person over is David Colleen.
Mhm.
All right, David, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, very clearly.
Okay, good. There, my video will start as well. Good evening, members of the Becket Planning Board. My name is David Colleen, and I am representing the Colleen Family Trust, which owns an abutting property to the proposed development. As stated in recent communications I've submitted, my family is not opposed to the development of this marijuana farm near our property, as long as it is done properly and does not cause harm to the environment or to the quality of our property. My comments relate to the plan revisions that were posted on the town's website on February 17, 2022. I am pleased to see that the tetrahydra, or the applicants for tetrahydra, have eliminated the outdoor grow area from their plans, and I am pleased to see there is now an additional set of parking spaces to the rear of the property, right on the property itself. While there are some improvements since the last set of plans, my family is still concerned that there are still aspects of the revised plans that could cause harm to our property. Let me outline those for you. First of all, just as a technical matter, I'd like to note that unless I missed it, as looking at the revised plans sheet by sheet, I did not see a plan revision date on the new plans. Maybe you had seen them, but they're all still dated the end of January 2022. In my history of dealing with planning and zoning approvals over the years, we'd always used the dates of a specific plan to help distinguish it from another. I'm not quite sure how you would do that with this set. They all seem to be dated January 25th, 2022. So that's just something I raise a concern about. Aside from the dating of the materials, and as long as somehow you can distinguish them, our concerns are still that this is a fairly large industrial type operation which hosts 2 shifts of employees daily to keep the operation going. The proposed greenhouse building still extends into the wetland buffer zones, and we don't have much additional information on how the wetlands are going to be protected or how the Conservation Commission will be looking at the wetlands and their impact on the proposed development. The revised plans do still show a wetland crossing for the access driveway to the rear, to the area that's labeled overflow parking, and to also enable the septic system to connect with the proposed building that's on the southern end of the site. The wetlands and streams on the subject property connect with the streams, wetlands, and springs on our property. And we have not heard much of a presentation explaining how this operation and the stormwater management system will fully protect the water quality in this area. In my February 7 letter to the board, I noted that the proposed stormwater management system is a complex one. The stormwater report includes a detailed operation and maintenance plan, some 19 pages in length. If the system is not maintained sufficiently, water quality on this site will be degraded, and so will ours. During the February 9 hearing on this application, there were at least 4 or 5 individuals who spoke on behalf of the applicant and their knowledge of running similar grow facilities in other locations. But I did not hear testimony from the proponents of this application or the engineers for Tetrahydra explaining their ability to manage such a complex stormwater management system. On page 4 of my February 7 communication to you, I summarized those requirements. They're in at least 6 different areas. There are drainage channels, there are catch basin sumps, water quality swales, level lip spreader, and infiltration chambers, all of which have a different set of requirements for successfully being maintained. So I'd like to hear how the applicant, what staff are they going to have on board that will help to manage that. And our additional concern is the very steep slopes on the property. In some ways, the property is like a crown about 50 feet above our property, and the amount of cut and fill on the proposed treatment on the neighboring property shows very, very steep slopes going down a 50-foot slope. And they say whatever is uphill is going to run downhill. So obviously the success of the stormwater management system is critical to making sure that the water quality, is improved there or is maintained for ours. And then the only final question I have is one I raised the last time, and that is reviewing the legality of providing 11 parking spaces on the neighboring Metcalf property. What happens if the neighboring property is sold to another owner at some point? In closing, I ask the board to please protect my family's interests in this property. As you review and deliberate on it, I hope at a minimum you will consider conditions that will create performance standards to help basically assure the ongoing water quality. Thank you.
All right. Before we proceed to someone else in the audience, what I'd like to do is go back to Steve Mack, the engineer, and see if he could address, while those items are still fresh in everybody's mind. Steve, can you address some of the things that were just brought up?
I can try. For the plan revision date, we could certainly add a plan revision date on the plan. We were trying to get that out as quickly as possible to everybody so they could see it. So we can add a revision date to that and file that easily.
There we go on each page, each sheet.
Yeah, we could put it right in the revision block. Sure.
Okay. I mean, that's what is standard.
Yeah. Like I said, we were really pressed trying to get this out so people could see it. On the stormwater management, the project's been designed in accordance with the Mass Stormwater Standards, which are the requirements in Massachusetts. They're very rigorous and very detailed, very technical, and they are designed to match pre-existing conditions to post-construction conditions in terms of runoff, water quality, volume of runoff, et cetera. So we have a pretty detailed report, like you said, in our application, which lays out how it conforms to the Mass Stormwater Standards, which are the really the best regulations that I've been involved with for protecting stormwater. The parking versus the outdoor grow facility, we've designed the parking to match the same runoff characteristics. We've modified some of the grading and changed some of the swales. to capture the parking in a way that's slightly different than the outdoor grow facility, but there'll be no increase in runoff from changing the outdoor grow facility to an overflow, really grass parking facility that'll be pervious. And we don't anticipate it's needed. If you recall, we actually asked for a waiver. It was determined that the board may be uncomfortable with the waiver, so we added the parking. There's not that many people that are going to be here. We have, I think, 38 or 39 parking spaces now, and that's way in excess of what the project requires. So that's really an overflow parking that'll have very little use. Let's see. I'm not sure. I think those were really the main questions, although if they're...
Yeah, I think the only other question is really a comment on either from the applicant or from you as to how the operation will perform that 19-page operation and maintenance manual that you've out that spells out good standards, but they're only good if the system is properly maintained. I think for the drainage channels, as an example, there are 5 maintenance requirements that need to be performed twice a year, and that's just one of the areas. So
right, most
I think it's
of
going to
those
require
areas,
somebody to be sophisticated enough to know how to manage that and operate it.
Yeah, most of the drainage management system requires, like you said, quarterly observation or biannually observation. And it's really just making sure that they're clear of debris, operating correctly, mowing, if they're grassed areas, mowing them periodically so they don't get trees and vegetation in them. It's not a sort of labor intensive project, so they would have to come up with a schedule of observations based on our report that we put together. And the operation and maintenance manual, I should say, excuse me, is part of or will be part of the order of conditions given by the Conservation Commission. And that's a requirement of the permit that they have to meet those regulations. So, but again,
That's good.
it's probably just a couple of hours quarterly or biannually reviewing the system. If there's items that need to be cleaned, they'll have to get a person out there with either a shovel or pulling the debris or trash out. It's not a hugely onerous.
I don't think they're rocket science, but it does require somebody to go out and look at them. I live in a city where our catch basins would be much better off if our public works department cleaned them out occasionally. And that's the same issue if they're not.
Right. It's exactly addressing that, correct?
All right, so in summary, I guess that my understanding is there's gonna be an operations manual that comes with the stormwater management plan.
Right, that's been submitted, I believe, with the stormwater report.
The Conservation Commission, correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Well, that's, again, you haven't submitted anything to the Conservation Commission, as I understand it.
The filing deadline, I believe, is March 8th for their next meeting.
Okay, so that's upcoming. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. All right, next, who's next up there, Jesse?
Deborah Eberhardt?
Deborah?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Hello. Yes. Thank you for giving me time to speak. I own a home on Benton Hill Road. I would like the board to consider how important their vote is on this project. This is a precedent-setting vote. I'm not sure the application has been looked at in this manner. The approval of Tetrahydra's application will affect every square mile of Becket. The town bylaws allow 6 pot farms to be located throughout the town. This project will set precedents for the next 5 pot farms. If this project is allowed to proceed, every other pot farm will have to be allowed under the same conditions. The town bylaws clearly state the conditions which require immediate correction. The host agreement allows for odors to be negatively impact the surrounding homes for 2 weeks before a meeting with the town is required. Then goes further and requires 5 complaints from 5 different households before a non-correcting action is taken. It is inconceivable that the board would allow the homes closest to this project to have to live with skunk-like stench every day these violations occur with no recourse. Approving this application will allow the other 5 pot farms to be located in 5 more residential neighborhoods and allow for those homes to have no meaningful protection against the odor that will negatively affect their quality of life, the value of their homes, and potentially their family's health. But besides the host agreement, every future pot farm will be able to build in wetland buffer zones if you approve Tetrahydra's application, because the precedent will be set to allow it. Every future pot farm will be allowed to be located in any neighborhood over very strong objections of the neighboring homes, because the approval of Tetrahydra's application will set the precedents to do so. At the end of January 2021, over 130 letters had been sent to the board objecting to the location of the Tetrahydra pot farm, with only 4 in favor. Every future pot farm will be allowed to build a huge 31,000 plus square foot building that are more than 24 feet tall, a building completely out of character with the neighborhood, in direct violation of the bylaws, because the approval of Tetrahydra's application will set the precedents to do this in any residential neighborhood. Keystone Bluff, a cannabis cultivation and manufacturing operation, has shown interest in locating in Becket, which will be the next residential neighborhood to have their quality of life negatively affected due to the existence of a pot farm in their close proximity. Fleur LLC, a cannabis cultivation and manufacturing operation, has also shown interest in locating in Becket. Which residential neighborhood will be the 3rd area to have their quality of life negatively affected due to the existence of a pot farm in their close vicinity? Wetland buffer zones won't stop them. Strong neighborhood objections won't stop them. Building a huge commercial building out of character with the neighborhood won't stop them. All residential neighborhoods are at risk if Tetrahydra's application is approved. This is in addition to the decrease of property values in the town as a whole that 6 pot farms will cause. Some board members have said they were voted in to bring cannabis industry to Becket. But any sensible person would believe this would not happen haphazardly in residential neighborhoods. We know what's going to happen. Look at Pittsfield, Sheffield, Great Barrington, who have stopped placing pot farms in residential neighborhoods. These areas have experience with the negative effects these operations cause. The voters who approved these measures were not voting for pot farms in their residential neighborhoods. In Becket, the residents of Yoakum Pond Road and Benton Hill Road strongly opposed pot farms being located in their neighborhoods. There are proven negative effects, financially, emotionally, health-wise. The simple right to enjoy one's own property every day of the year, not just the day when the wind is not blowing in their direction. The legal ramifications of the approval of Tetrahydra's application could be very costly to the town due to the fact many bylaws have been ignored and violated. Will the residents that are affected by these pot farms be financially compensated for the losses?
Deborah, can I interrupt you for 1 minute? Okay, I didn't set this time limit, earlier.
I have 2 more sentences.
All right, fine, finish, please.
A moratorium is needed to give the town time to investigate the proper location of such intrusive commercial operations and to consider the number of pot farms Becket will allow. In addition, I respectfully request that any board member who does not own property in the town of Becket recuse themselves from this precedent-setting vote. Thank you very much for the time.
Right, James, all right,
2 points, please.
but easy.
Just two. One, there is a little bit of confusion there. One member of the Board of Selectmen did say at our last meeting that he had campaigned on the issue of bringing hot farms. No one on this board has done so. So that's an inaccurate statement. And secondarily, no one could be on this board unless they do own property and live in the town of Becket. So that's not an issue either.
Right. And I have one other thing, ma'am, that I would like to say, very short. You're up. What am I
We
listening
need
to?
to,
Somebody.
please raise your hand.
Right, but bottom line is that your opening statement said that there was this license and there would be 5 more. Just to set the record straight for everybody in tonight, okay? This board approved a special permit for a cannabis growing cultivation facility called Grow Boys LLC. So if there's precedent set, it's already been. And I disagree with you saying that it set the precedent, but in fact there is a precedent that there is a facility that has a special permit from this board already, okay? And it's located over on the western part of the towards the western part of the town. It's located on Tanglewood Circle, all right? And it was approved how long ago?
Last year.
Last year, okay? So that's that, okay? All right, next person on the board, okay? What? Well, there won't be 6. The total is 6, and they're not necessarily all, you know, it could be a medical, it could be a testing facility, it could be a lot of other things. They're not necessarily cannabis cultivation facilities. That's specified in the bylaw. And I know, I'm not gonna read that passage to you, but. What? Oh, no, we have, well, those are retail facilities. We have already approved 2 retail facilities. One in North Becket, and they're open and they're selling product right now. And the other one is not yet opened. It's on the corner it's in West Becket, on 2727
Jacob's Ladder.
What? Jacob's Ladder Road, okay, which is at the corner of Route 820, right down by the Lindell home. So that's a retail facility, and hasn't been opened yet, but they've still got time to do that if they want to.
July.
And that's in addition to the other 6 licenses.
They
Okay?
have until July to.
They have until July 6th, okay, to start work on the project, or that project disappears. But anyways, okay, let's go on to the next individual. I don't really want to be going on for.
Arthur Callaghan is next.
Arthur, are you there?
Without Mike, he's coming back.
I am. Thank you.
All right, yes, sir, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, it's not going to surprise you that a lot of the people who are opposed to this project talk to each other. And I'd like to sort of describe a general sense that a lot of people have. And it's sort of surprised that this project is being sort of looked at as plausible. I want to make a few points that sort of affect all of us. First of all, we always feel rushed. This project has now been pending for a year, more or less. And every time there's some data that we actually could analyze, it always appears 3 days or 4 days or a week before a meeting. This last bit of data, the several sheets of plans, arrived, I think, last Friday. And you are going to close a hearing after people have had a chance to review those plans for 2 business days. I wouldn't be surprised if the board was sick of hearing about this project and sick of dealing with everybody involved. But it's not our fault. We should have an opportunity to actually respond to the data, get whatever expert assistance we need, and be able to talk to you about it. Apropos, one of the primary things you're asked to do is to assess, and I'm quoting the bylaw, the effect on the character of the neighborhood to include visual compatibility with surrounding uses. I just wonder, Mr. Chairman, how the board thinks about that requirement. This is going to be a 24-foot high, 200-foot long building. That's a large mass of building along approximately 50 feet from the roadway. Originally, this project was going to be hidden away in a hollow in the property, and the application explicitly said it will not be visible. I understand that when the community visit occurred, they put up balloons to prove that you couldn't see the building from a distance. That made sense. Whether it was persuasive or not is up to the board to decide, but at least we understood that it would be more compatible, as the bylaw requires, with the area. Now, for whatever reason, it's been moved up to the street. It's just not possible for a building that size to be compatible with the neighborhood. It's not possible. Shouldn't be debatable. Now, in any event, you would think if the board was actually going to assess what the compatibility was, we'd want to see what it looks like. Show me a picture of what this is going to look like from the street. We haven't got that yet. With all the what was called elevations, there is no elevation. It's simply construction drawings. I don't understand. This group of people cannot understand how you can seriously consider this project that requires you to assess what the impact on the character of the neighborhood to include visual compatibility would be without seeing that. And it talks about visual compatibility with surrounding uses. Now, there's what may be a unique problem in that regard, because the surrounding use is the use by as a conservation property directly across the street. You have a letter in your files that talks about the use of that building by people, by tourists, by school groups that come and go into that parking lot, which is going to stare up at this huge building. Mr. Roger, I'd really like to have an understanding of how you think about these problems, how you analyze them, because we don't understand why we're even having this discussion. And I know the planning board takes in all the information and it goes and makes a decision. But it would sure make the community a little more comfortable if we understood how you think about that. How do you weigh the problem of having a building that's 24 feet high and 200 feet across, directly across the street from conservation land where school kids show up on a regular basis? I mean, I know some people dismiss that. You have evidence in the record that says exactly that. Where the trustees are going to try to increase the amount of traffic gets. How do you think about that issue? It would be really helpful, and it's really a question for you, Mr. Ronzio. How do you think about that question? Thank you.
All right. Well, I would like to. I can address that. I've addressed it early on in the meeting. I have pored over records, and I brought this up to the attention of other board members. I have looked everywhere. I talked to the former owners of the quarry site. I've poured over their supposed key documents that they were keeping for a couple of years when they first opened. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, that I have been shown other than anecdotal evidence. And I hope everybody understands what anecdotal evidence is, okay? That shows that school children have frequenting this site for years, okay? I taught school for 38 years in Western Massachusetts. That's WESTON, okay? I taught third grade. I took kids on field trips everywhere. Everything was completely documented. And if I had to produce anything, all right, any records, I had records for my entire career, okay, on the places that I went and when I went and how many children. And I had to send out notices to parents and had to get back, all right, signed releases so that those kids could go. I have not seen any of that evidence whatsoever, okay? I've asked repeatedly, and I'm not going to continue to ask, okay? Anecdotal evidence is just not cutting it for me, okay? As far as the building is concerned, it is different from what is there right now, okay? But it's a greenhouse, okay? And there is a greenhouse already on the site. And there are greenhouses elsewhere in the town, okay? And I've heard that people have said that the one right down the street from the town hall was an eyesore. And then I heard about the Robinson's farm, which is further going towards North Becket, and how that was an eyesore. And it sounds to me maybe that could, the owners of that facility are people of color, right? Maybe there's something else going on here.
They've also had that farm since 1903.
And they also had that farm since 1903. Okay, this is not Connecticut. Certain parts of Connecticut, Litchfield, Connecticut, where you have farms that are manicured and the grass is kept at an inch high, and the fences are all painted white. All right, and the owners probably are
Really?
not even present. Okay, in many cases. Okay, that's my feeling. Okay, that's my feeling on the issues with the facility across the street and the building. Okay, the building is it's bigger. It's definitely bigger. There's no doubt about that. All right. But is it out of character with what's already there? Yeah. How long? I don't know how long the Metcalfs. I frequented that farm while it was open, and I used to get my eggs and other things there because they had a farm facility. And as a matter of fact, that land is still considered to be Chapter 61A land. Okay, so it's a farm, and farms can raise all different kinds of things on that farm. They can raise them in grain houses. They could put swine on the property if they wanted to. They could grow hemp if they wanted to, right? From one corner of the property to the other, 87 acres worth of it. All right, and because it's an agricultural product, not unlike cannabis, which is not considered to be agricultural. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to worry about odor mitigation or wetland issues. That's the way it is. Okay, this facility is going to be an indoor facility, as I see it, and they've looked at and have talked about the difference between an indoor facility and an outdoor facility, where the mitigation efforts are going to be completely different. Okay, on an outdoor grow, yes, when they had the outdoor grow facility on the back of the property, that potentially could present problems depending upon how far the odor would travel. All right. That's enclosed in an enclosed structure that's got filters on it, and that's totally different. Anyways, you asked for my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Okay.
Mr. Rosio, may I speak for just one more moment?
You may.
I've heard what you've said, and now I understand your thoughts, and I appreciate that. I would only point out to you that you don't need a special permit to have pigs, to grow hemp, to grow corn, to have a farm. The town has said you need a special permit to have a marijuana facility.
You're absolutely correct, and I was instrumental in writing our bylaw, okay?
So I think the point is that the fact there could be a farm there that has hemp or pigs doesn't particularly justify having a marijuana facility if it is inconsistent with the use of with the neighborhood and with the use as is documented by a letter from the former chairman of the trust that has run until last fall, the facility. I'm not sure how to compare the letter I've read with the research you've done, but the letter is quite explicit.
I don't want to.
But thank you. You have told me.
I don't want to
answer my
on
question.
the letter. I asked him to send me a letter, okay, and I got back nothing. All right.
Well, you have a letter in the record. So I'm not going to debate.
Okay, Ken Smith was the president or whatever, chairman of the board for the Becket Land Trust, and he still is because Becket Land Trust is still in operation. I asked them for all kinds of documents and I received nothing, zero, nada. Okay.
Can I make a point of order, please?
Yeah.
As this is a public, it's Howard Lerner, a member of the board, calling in remote. As this is the session for the public, can we just allow them to?
I know. I'm going to stop, Howard. I really don't need to be answering all of these questions, but
and we'll just take everything
directly how I felt, and so I basically answered them.
We will take all this information under advisement and use that in our deliberation.
Thank you. All right, next.
Bob Gross is next.
Bob Gross.
Thank you. Quick question for you. Given all of the substantial changes in the plan, I'm curious to know if the planning board has given proper notice to all of the boards and commissions that are supposed to take into consideration the plan.
Jesse, were all of the.
I mean, all the boards were noticed at the start of the application. It's up to them to, if they're interested in the application. I mean, as far as I know, no one showed any interest, other than the Conservation Commission and Board of Health, of course.
And the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission have been appraised of the changes.
But how about all the other entities, such as the police?
The police and the fire department. It's my understanding that the police and the fire department were in contact with with Tetrahydra and Brian Vincent, and they worked out a plan for the facility. And I have not really gotten a report back from them, other than I was told that they were.
Well, David Johnson's on. He could hear from conservation soon.
Well, we can get to David. We'll get to David in a minute. But as far as the police and the fire and the ambulance service, it's my understanding that they did not have any objections to the project. As a matter of fact, they thought it would basically help them a great deal, because Tetrahydra AgTech LLC was going to put off-duty officers on detail status to be there during the summer months when there was a high volume of traffic in the area, and they thought that would be extremely helpful to the quarry, especially with the number of incidences that they've had in the most recent years as kids get up there and go up to the quarry and are mischievous in their visits to the site. For instance,
Anecdotal.
Throwing little dogs into the pond. They've had to bring the EMPs up there. They've had to evacuate people. Some of that they feel would be curtailed with the visible police presence down at the entrance to the facility.
I understand what you just said, and that was all based on the initial plan that was presented. And I'm just wondering if these entities have been approached and apprised of the significant changes, and you've gotten confirmation that what they felt before is still the case.
I mean, you know, I haven't gotten anything back from them. And as far as the plans are concerned, you know, if we can very easily get the plans, you know, we're not making a decision tonight, that's for certain, all right? But, you know, we've got, we can be in contact with them. The plans are here. We gave copies of the new revised plans to the Conservation Commission because the next step in this process, and I don't mean the next step, but you know, the Tetrahydra AgTech LLC is going to have to go before the Conservation Commission and submit an NOI, notice of intent. And it's my understanding that that's going to be taking place sometime in the next week or two.
I understand all that. It's just my understanding was that there's a long list of boards and commissions that is supposed to be notified of the plan, and I just am requesting that, given the fact that this has been such a significantly changed application, that the planning board make sure that all of those entities are made aware of these changes so that they can comment if they feel they're appropriate. There may not be any changes, but I just think the planning board ought to do its due diligence in terms of reaching out to these entities. Thank you.
We certainly can do that.
Can I just say that's generally not
But-
the rule of thumb.
Technically, if you really want to know, they had 35, all of these agencies had 35 days to respond to us at the initial outset. Jesse, can you tell me exactly how many responded within that 35-day window? Zero. Okay. That's how much interest there was in this town by all of the boards in this town when this application, and that's not uncommon for any of these special permit applications. We get special permit applications all the time, and we send all the information out, and we get zero response. Most recently, okay, the only responses that we have ever gotten are infrequent responses from the select board. That's it. Okay.
Okay, it was a question that I felt I wanted to ask.
No, I can understand what you're saying, and you know, we can apprise them again, but you know, they had no objections at the outset when this was formulated right from the beginning.
All the information is on the website.
And the information is all up there on the website all the time, and it's constantly updated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next.
David Johnson?
David Johnson, yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Dave Johnson. I chair the Becket Conservation Commission, and I can't take any questions because it may be considered deliberation of public forum, and this is not my format. The Conservation Commission looks at applications when they get presented to us, and it's very common for us not to review any applications until they go through the building, the planning board, and the Board of Health, because there's a lot of hoops an applicant has to jump through. When we take on and do an application or something is presented to us, and we don't do it by opinions and people's feelings. We don't come under the town governance. There's no town bylaws for conservation. They're all state regulated, and they are the parties that the state oversees us. When there was something said earlier, I wanted to make sure everybody realized, and I've got some notes here I'd just like to read. We have, the applicant is going to have to file with the DEP, and when you file with the DEP, it's going to be a notice of intent. The DEP has 21 days to issue a file number. Once they issue a file number, then the Conservation Commission has 21 days to schedule a meeting. That's what it is considered a reasonable time. If the DEP does not issue a file number, we can take no action on the application. We cannot hold a public hearing. We can't do anything just to inform the public. It's got to be a full meeting for deliberation, consideration, to either accept or modify any particular application. The commission, people don't realize this, but we do not discuss with each other or members of the public applications and how we're going to proceed on them. That has to be done by state statute in an open meeting, and very similar to what the other boards are doing. One of the things I promise that we will do is if this reaches if it comes to us for a deliberation, there will be a special meeting, and you can attend in person or you can attend on Zoom. We will require the applicant, and we can do this, to provide all documents for us to review 21 days ahead of time. All documents that we receive will be posted. We will also post what the procedure will look like for the evening, the things we can consider, the things that we cannot consider. We're also going to, the commission at one of our meetings decided if this comes before us, we're going to do a third-party review, and the third party, one of the persons is a former DEP scientist, worked for the DEP for 40 years, and the other person worked in the field for 30 years. They have extensive background. The reason we're going for a third-party review is whatever decision we end up making, because we're the last person to sign off on this, one party or the other is not going to be happy, and it's going to have to go into court. That's the position that we take. We want to make sure we do this by the law and that we do it right. And the Conservation Commission has 8 elements that we are responsible, and it has to do with well, water, ponds, and lakes, and so forth. There isn't any of us on the commission that isn't committed and dedicated to protection of our waterways. And I can tell you that we deal with this month after month with issues, and we as a commission have to know that if this is going to be built on the property, that the wetlands are not going to be injured. I can tell you that because we're charged with that responsibility. And so it's not an opinion, it's our legal obligation to property owners. I'm going to see if there's anything else here. All right, that's, I think those are the key points that I wanted to make that I wrote down here. If you have questions, you may send them in, like procedural questions. We cannot tell you how it's going to turn out, but any procedural questions, please go to our website. You'll see 2 things there. There's an outline of when and if a meeting is scheduled, what the criteria and how it's going to go. And if you have questions that are not about the outcome, but the things you think we need to know that are not opinion but fact-based. If you've got documents, and we got something from Emily Stockman the other day that we're going to be reviewing that, because we consider Emily Stockman has notable credentials, and if she writes something, obviously we're going to listen. So we're going to be looking at that soon. And but if you have anything, please just go to the website. You can send it in. You can mail it into us. You can drop it off at the town hall. Nick is our conservation agent, and any documentation that we have and we receive, you're more than welcome to have that. We're required to release any and all emails and all correspondence with the applicants, the DEP, or anybody else related to the tetrahydrite to you, and it can be simply in the form of a phone call or just an email. So, but anyways, I hope that that's answered some questions. I've gotten a lot of phone calls on this, and I've had to really limit my conversations, because of statute and what I can say and not say. But I want everybody to know the Conservation Commission will take this seriously, and we will take a serious look at it. But we've got to follow the law in this as well. Okay, thank you.
All right, Dave, before you go, can I just ask you, has Tetrahydra AgTech LLC filed an NOI yet, and when is your next meeting?
Well, they're not going to be on our next meeting, because our next meeting is the 22nd of March. We're doing a special meeting for Tetrahydra. I sent them an email on this, and we cannot schedule or do anything until the NOI. They have to file with the DEP, The DEP has to send us through transmission the file number, and then we can schedule a meeting. So once we get that, we'd schedule a meeting with once we have all the documents, we'd schedule the meeting 21 days out so we can release all the documents to the public.
So generally, what do if they submitted their NOI to DEP, given the time schedule, when do you think this would all end?
Well, DEP can go 21 days. And,
are you talking May? Are you talking April? When?
If they submitted the DEP now, we could schedule a meeting for the end of March or the first week of April, but that would be the earliest. And I think the DEP will probably take, they're understaffed and, they know they have to turn this around quick within 21 days. So you could be looking out 42 to 60 days somewhere at the long side.
All right, thank you. Next. Who's next up
John
there?
Verity. John Verity.
John, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I have a couple questions, Brian Vincent. Brian, just confirming you are the name on the application, correct?
The application's for Tetrahydra AgTech LLC. But
Okay. Yes, but your name is on it, correct?
I'm part of Tetrahydra.
Okay, now you also are the one that signed the host agreement, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell me what size lot is indicated on the host agreement, the municipal impact report? What size the lot is?
I'd have to pull up the site plan and tell you. Steve, can you tell me what the size of the lot is?
What? Yeah, I know.
I am looking at it now. It's in the application. I think it's 5.6.
5.6. That's what it is.
In the application.
Okay,
5.637.
Okay. Based on the last two submissions of the site plan, it appears that you have gone out of the boundaries and gone east of the 5.6. Am I correct?
We do show an easement to the east that contains parking and utilities.
I'm talking about drainage, leaching fields, everything that are
Right,
shown.
that's what I said. We have an easement to the east of the property that has utilities and grading. on it.
Okay, and your easement, where did you get the easement from, or did you file the easement yet?
Yeah, we have an agreement with the Metcalfs.
I'm asking about the town. I don't care about the Metcalfs. What I'm trying to say is your drawing in compliance with the host agreement? It's a yes or no answer.
I believe, Brendan, do you want to step in and answer this for me?
I'm not as familiar with the host agreement, but I do want to raise this issue with the chairman. It's that it appears that Mr. Verity is essentially cross-examining the members, including Mr. Vincent, of Tetrahydra. I think it'd be more profitable if there's a number of questions, if Mr. Verity wants to state that, and Mr. Vincent, Mr. Mack, and myself can in turn respond to each of those rather than have it be trial by fire here.
Gentlemen, it's not trial by fire. I'm just trying to get some clarification here. I see 5.6 in the host agreement.
Gotta stop it, clerk. Got it.
I see 5.6 in the municipal impact report. But when I look at the site plan, I see a project that is larger than 5.6. And I see no documentation of any kind requesting an easement or anything. So in my personal opinion, it looks like the site drawing is non-compliance to the signed host agreement.
Well, thank you very much. Okay. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yes, I'd like one question about Mr. Goodenough. And that is, through the whole course of this whole presentation, meeting after meeting, we have not once heard from any of your neighbors on your behalf next to your DG ad tech operation. And as another thing, we've never heard from any of your partners from that organization on your behalf. Are they available to speak?
Mike, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Do you wish me to answer? Am I answering? So to the board, let me just give
Well,
clarity.
I know you wanted to, can we come back to that? I have one more individual that needs.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You bet.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mike?
Oh, no, Stephen.
No. Stephen?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listening to the comments at this hearing and previous hearings, the issues that are being considered by the planning board are complex and vital to the community. That they involve odor emissions, wetland impacts, stormwater management, water quality. And I wanted to echo the theme that I heard earlier in this session, that the planning board ought to have its own independent technical experts to help it evaluate whether the technology that's being advocated to deal with these issues and to deal with the bylaw requirements is sufficient to properly protect the town and abutting residents and nearby residents from potential adverse impacts on odor, on the wetlands, and on water quality. And just as the Conservation Commission plans to have a third-party review, the planning board also has extremely important responsibilities under the town bylaws, and having an independent technical expert to advise it seems to me to be a helpful step, and I hope you'll consider it.
Thank you. All right, is there one? I keep seeing hands get raised, okay?
Jim Schaefer is there on the screen.
Jim?
Yes.
Don Schaefer or Jim Schaefer? It's
Wow.
Don Schaefer, but it's Jim
We
Schaefer.
live at the same address and use the same equipment here.
I've got you on the log.
I'm Jim Schaefer. I live at 138 Bonnie Rig Hill Road. I've heard talk about a 20-foot high building. I've gone through the plans several times in the past 20 minutes, and I still don't see any building elevations, nor do I see any notation on the plans that it's a 20-foot tall building. Why isn't it there? It should
within a separate document. All right, it was sent. There were two documents that were put on the web. One of them had to do with the upgraded plan, the site plan, and then there was a second one, and people have already referenced it. You may have not seen it, but it was architectural drawings of the of what the building would look like from the road. Okay.
You're right. I have not seen it. I was on the planning board website and I didn't see how to get it. So,
Well,
okay, I'll go to Borough Town Hall tomorrow and look at them.
All right. The other thing is, people were talking about actual pictures of what this might look like, and the I personally went to the manufacturer's site to look at some of the buildings that have been constructed in various other locations, and they had a really detailed site that would show these buildings, not this specific building, but they were actual structures. And I sent that to the planning board, and I sent it out when I got it, and I think it's 372 pages long. All right, so there's plenty of detail there.
Why isn't the applicant providing this?
Well, as I said, we asked for renderings. we got renderings from that particular company, all right? That's what we asked for, and he provided what we asked for, all right? I decided to take it on my own to actually go take a look and see what these buildings look like and see what the company was like, okay? And I told you what I just found, and I made it available to the board, I believe. Jesse, didn't I send you a copy of that?
I think, I'm pretty sure I forwarded it to everyone.
Yeah, forwarded
There was a lot of
everything.
confusion because it was a problem with the email.
Part of the problem is the file is so large that, you know, it's too difficult. It's too difficult. It's much easier to just use the link to the website and go directly to their website.
Jim, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I'm done.
Okay.
All right.
Mitch Greenwald's got something?
No, I want to go on. I want to go on to people who haven't had a chance to speak.
Okay, Michelle Cohen?
Michelle,
Raise your hand.
can you hear us?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
Hi, sorry.
We can hear you.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address the board. My comments will be fairly brief. I want to add a thought, really an extension of the comment that Arthur made having to do with the nature of this building and the surrounding property. So I just want to draw your attention to the signed host agreement to section 8E. It's titled Improvements to the Property. And here's really the basis for my question. The company shall make capital improvements to the property such that the property will match the look and feel of surrounding parcels. So I'd like to know what capital improvements would be made to make this property match the look and feel of the surrounding parcels.
8E. What number? 8E. 8E. Oh, I see it.
Where
Yeah, I'm talking about the host agreement, which.
Oh, the host
We
agreement?
were not supposed to be talking
Okay,
about.
no. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that's wonderful. All right, usually we look at structures to be in character with the neighborhood. There already is a greenhouse there. All right, I mean, this one's bigger, but that is the character of the neighborhood. The neighborhood was a farm, and they had greenhouses, and they had chicken coops, and they had all, it was a farm.
Mr. Ronzi, you actually want me to believe that the building that they're describing now has anything to do with the greenhouse that's currently on this property?
As I said, it's a greenhouse and it's larger. Okay, that's the, I mean, I can take a look at other areas of the town where, just down the street, the farm they've erected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 greenhouses, and I have been told by some people here at the town hall that people have said that that's not in the character of the town. Okay, well,
With a fence, a 6-foot fence and a security guard?
What?
Who's that?
Plenty of
Who was
people have
that?
6-foot fences.
6-foot fences are that's standard within the bylaw of the town of Becket.
Well, my comment is that I do not think that a 20-foot high building of this length, of this scale, has anything to do with the neighborhood and is not in keeping with the surrounding neighborhood and is very different from the other structures that you are describing.
Just so that you know, okay, and I would like to say one thing, okay? The town, a lot of people think that the town of Becket is a residential agricultural town, okay? Back in 1972, they added sections into the original zoning bylaws, which basically talked about commercial and industrial. And they said that all commercial and industrial areas are by special permit, okay? That's in the bylaw and has been in the bylaws for over 50 years. That's what we have to deal with. When people want to do a facility, that's why we have hearings. That's why people are appraised of what's going on, and that's why you're given the opportunity to speak in the public session about your feelings and what you think the board needs to do.
Well, thank you for letting me bring this to your attention.
All right, next.
Carol Moore.
I have one, maybe 2 points. The first point is that Tetrahydra's spokespeople have made a number of commitments orally, including employment, including all sorts of things, including funds for the community, and all their all their allegations regarding odor control. I would like to know if the planning board will demand these things in writing, and if they will impose specific penalties if they are not followed to the letter of those commitments in writing.
All right. Whenever a decision is rendered by the planning board, and if the project were to be approved, the planning board can basically specify in its decision what requirements the applicant would have to adhere to. And we can talk about things like, the project may or may not be approved depending upon what happens at through the Conservation Commission or any other thing that we feel that needs to be addressed. Okay, for instance, it could be a Board of Health issue. If the Board of Health, the Board of Health is a partner to the planning board in terms of approving certain projects, and if we write a decision and in the decision we say that this is subject to approval by the Board of Health, then that's something that they're going to have to adhere to. All right, because we're not experts in everything, and we're probably not experts in a lot of things, but the board, townspeople in the town of Becket basically decided that they needed a planning board. They put one together, and then they elected various people to serve on that board. And it's our responsibility to look out for the individuals within the town, within the bylaws the zoning bylaws that have been written and promulgated throughout the town, to make sure that we're doing so in the best interest of everybody in the town.
All right, well, the implication of what I asked is that it would be very helpful if this thing gets approved, and I don't think it can be done with what's on the record. But if it is approved, will there be a written commitment from Tetrahydra and written regulations from the planning board, including any penalties that are appropriate if they violate their commitments? And I think those should be in writing, and I think they should be commensurate with what's going on.
That's what I said. If the board in its deliberation phase sets forth certain requirements, then those requirements will be part of the permit. If they don't agree to them, then they won't get the permit.
Will there be penalties if they don't honor them once they do agree?
I can't say what those will be at this point in time, because the board hasn't entered into that phase where we would do that. I would imagine that if there were penalties that were required, obviously there's one requirement that was set forth by the select board. I don't even know why this went to the select board in the community host agreement. The community host agreement has got nothing to do with issues like the
odor mitigation.
The odor mitigation. I don't understand. I don't know why the select board got themselves in the middle of that whole thing is beyond me. Okay, it's not in the purview of the select board. That was in the purview of the planning board. Okay, and so you're going to have to trust us to make the when and if we render a decision, and if this project is approved. All right, that we stipulate in whatever arrangements we feel are necessary that need to be adhered to. And then if you know, there are people who feel that that's not good enough, then, you know, there is always the appeal to Superior Court, all right? If that's the way the decision goes. The decision could go the other way, okay? You know, I don't know how these people in this room are going to vote on this matter, all right? I have not discussed it with them, all right? They need to be able to make their decision based on the fact that with all the available facts that they have. And I trust them. They've done it. Unlike all the other elected positions in this town, the planning board members serve for 5 years, all right? And there's a reason for that. You know, there's a lot involved in making decisions and understanding the intricacies of the zoning regulations, the zoning act that was put together by the state. You know, so that's all I can tell you. Yes, if in fact there is an approval of this project, I'm sure there will be stipulations that are set forth in writing that the company will have to adhere to. And if there are penalties added to that, then there will be, okay? I can't tell you what that will be until the board gets to that phase. And the board, just so that everybody knows, okay? Once the public hearing, which is an informational gathering point, once this is closed, okay, we have 90 days, 3 months, all right, to render a decision. This decision is not going to be made post haste. I can tell you that. All right, next.
Barbara Walkholder.
Barbara Walkholder.
Hi, thank you. I'm just going to make a couple of general statements. And one thing that has been spoken about by a few people is the need for more expertise to figure out what might be missing or to better understand what this plan is putting forth. Many of us have spent inordinate amount of money and inordinate amount of time trying to fill in the blanks so we could come back with intelligent facts and information, which this is me personally, I would think those questions and that expertise would have been supplied by the planning board. We continue to do this. And for example, maybe it's on the map, but I still don't know what they're doing for noise mitigation. How many fans are there? What is the aggregate of numerous fans blasting away? And personally, I did not read through a zillion pages to find out the specs on this piece of this greenhouse, but from what I heard from the last meeting, I thought it was going to be made of metal, not of the plastic that we see around for the funkier, more rural-like greenhouses. If in fact it is a metal building with blacked out windows, that just reminds me more of a prison or where they keep the chickens who can't even stand up anymore. I don't know how high it literally is when you take in elevation into account. There was some talk before about having some air cooling towers. I didn't see anything on the roof, but are there going to be any? How are you going to cool this thing? And so I just am bewildered why we have to keep coming back and asking questions and details that if you had an expert working on this, they would have asked. And every time we ask them, we get many answers. And I appreciate the revisions that the company has made to try to adhere to what we are asking about. But why didn't you put this building further back on the lot or explain why you would not do that. How high are these trees going to be? Are they going to be evergreens? Are they going to be pines that lose every branch every year and don't shield anything? I mean, there are details upon details upon details, and I have my limited ability to be the expert on everything. Even the engineering firm mentioned still that about something about an outdoor grow. Is that still a potential out there, or did he, just misspeak? So I don't know where Mr. Ronzio, you said you and the board would look at the facts available. Well, you have facts from us, and you have information from the applicant. How do you judge your facts if you don't have an intermediary talking to you? I'm totally bewildered.
All right.
That's it.
James?
I just want to point out to everybody, the planning board, every one of us serves this job with no compensation whatsoever. We do not have a budget for anything. If you want us to have a $90,000 or $100,000 expert to help us, well, tell the selectmen, and we'd love it.
All right, James. Thanks. All right. Well, it is, okay?
No.
Yes, it is, okay? Let's not get into this right now.
In the past we have done what has been suggested.
But we wrote it into the bylaws, okay, on specific cases. You were here, I was here.
I've never been here for that. I've been here for 5 years.
Were you present when we wrote the bylaws for marijuana?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, okay. We specifically decided not to do that in this case. That's why it's not in. No, do we have it?
It's in other cases.
It's in other situations, okay, but it was specifically not included in this particular bylaw.
I don't remember why we did that.
I can't tell you either. But
we have no budget
for
that.
All right.
Excuse me, gentlemen, this is not the time to deliberate.
Let's go on here, okay? I wanna get through the public hearing part tonight, okay? Who's next?
Dr. Pillinger?
Yes, thank you.
First
of all,
Pillinger.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. First of all, thank you all for your service, however heated this may get. We appreciate it. I would like to cede my time to Attorney Greenwald to speak for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on. Who else is up there?
I think Leanne Ellis.
Mr. Chair.
Leanne Ellis, okay, yes. Leanne.
I think Leanne, do you want Mitch to speak for you too, Leanne?
No, she wants to speak.
I'll be, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to wait, but I identified a large number of clients. I didn't come close to using a lot of their time. And before we're done, I want to speak for another 2 or 3 minutes.
Well, you can, but you're going to have to identify, additional individuals.
I already identified more than enough. I don't think I spoke for 10 minutes.
So you know what? Okay, Mitch, I'm going to tell you. I want a list of the people that you're speaking for. I asked you last time to do it. I got about 5 or 6 people. I asked you this time to do it, right? And now you're telling me that you're not going to do that. Well,
no.
I'm not going to let you speak again. Thank you,
Mr. Chairman. I did not say.
Cut him off.
Cut
him off.
All right, we'll deal with this later. We'll deal with this elsewhere if we have to. Very inappropriate. Very inappropriate.
Stop it. All right, next. You have
Mr.
to
Chairman, I'd like my time back then if I'm not permitted to cede it to Attorney Greenwald.
I will let him speak, but right now the floor is for Leanne.
Thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to piggyback on a couple of comments by Arthur and Jim Schaefer. We got the elevations. you know, I did take some engineering courses in my time in college, and I was taught how to read blueprints. I found it very confusing to read these. I might have lost a lot of my capacity being elderly, but I couldn't read them. I did go on to Harnois' website. A lot of us actually did. And as Arthur said, we talked to each other, and we were trying to figure out if this was a Luminosa 420 or what was it. And you know, we do spend time trying to understand. Going to Barbara's point, we are trying to be informed about this farm. And I was confused because I heard Mr. Vincent, and perhaps I heard wrong, saying this was a steel and glass building with poly walls. You know, I regret to say that in spite of the fact that we do try, we don't understand everything, and that the lack of information it makes us seem adversarial. And I wrote this in my comments to you earlier in the year, you know, in January, I think. The fact that we don't get information easily, when it was said you don't have to give, the Tetrahydra doesn't have to give this information till they go to the Cannabis Control Commission, or that we you know, that they don't have to give it yet. I think this actually made the neighborhood wary and adverse and look like we're adversarial. But I think we're just trying to get information. I am a retired municipal employee living on a pension, and my house is my nest egg. And if I'm going to lose 8.04% of my value of my home, it's a real concern for me. And so I am trying to be informed. I am trying to do due diligence, and we all are. And yet it seems that every turn we are kind of left scratching our heads when we have hair, trying to figure out what's going to happen with this farm. And I did suggest in some of my documentation that perhaps the next time there could be a working group between the applicant and the neighbors to talk about things, so we don't come to this point of being so adversarial. I just regret it that we are constantly bugging you, and I understand you may feel threatened and bullied, but it's not that. We are asking for information so we are informed and we can make decisions about how this impacts us and our neighborhood. I would add to that that the question I have about, I'm trying to read my own handwriting, I'm sorry, the municipal the stormwater report, and it was mentioned, is they talk about the Lennox rainfall. Is it the Lennox rainfall or the Becket rainfall that is quoted in that report? Again, good information. It also talks about the Stockbridge Conservation Committee documents. Well, we're not in Stockbridge. So even the municipal report, which could have been corrected between times, has not been looked at. And I regret that, because then it makes me think, oh, is this slipshod? You know, so I would ask the planning board to understand. I do appreciate your service, and I understand you do it on a voluntary basis, but also look at us as trying to be informed neighbors and partners in what's going to happen to us. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm
All right,
sir.
let's go to Robert Allery.
Sorry, I just had to unmute. I cede my time to Attorney Greenwald. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, yes, Tess?
I cede my time to Attorney Greenwald.
Thank you very much. Okay, John? Carino,
John
is that
Carino?
Carino? John Carino?
I let attorney speak for me.
He wants the Attorney Greenwald to speak.
Attorney
Fine, thank you, okay, yes.
Gordon?
Yes, I cede my time as well.
Fine,
Okay,
thank
do you wanna
you
go
very
back
much,
to Mitch? I
okay?
think he's the only one left now.
Who is it?
Mitch is the only one left.
John?
No,
No, I'm
Mitch is-
sorry, I'm
Mitch is-
sorry, I'm trying to read from.
Mitch is the only one left. Everyone wants Mitch.
All
to
right,
speak.
Mitch, fine, Mitch is the only one left, thank you very much, okay? So Mitch, okay, now that we know that you've got time, okay, you may.
And I want to point out to you, Mr. Chairman, the number of people whose names I gave you before. I doubt that you kept track of how long I spoke, but it came nowhere near 5 minutes for all those names.
It wasn't
So
five.
excuse me,
It
the
was
prior
two.
exchange, the prior exchange was inappropriate. Now I have 4 or 5 more people who ceded their time, and I'm not going to use it all. I'm just going to speak for a very few minutes, and then I'll cede the rest of it back to them if they care to speak. First of all, something I omitted to mention before, in one of the documents that was submitted as part of the application papers, I believe the later set, where they did a rundown of requirements and how they satisfied them, it said for a couple of them, see application to CCC. And I didn't know that there had been. And we looked it up, and the CCC online had no record of it. So I inquired of one of the applicant's representatives, what was this with a CCC application? Did we miss something? And as my friend Leanne just said, an effort to obtain information. That's what this is all about. So I asked, where is the CCC application? I got no response. There's no CCC application, as far as I know. A misstatement made to you by the applicant, one of many. Next, people spoke about wetlands work being in the buffer zone, and there is quite a bit of that. But according to Emily Stockman, whose credentials were affirmed by the chair of your Conservation Commission, she says there's definitely work that has to be done in protected areas, not just in the buffer zone. I know you all understand the difference. The chairman alluded to a notice of intent. That's because it's in the wetlands, work in the wetlands. Now, anecdotal, let's look at that for a minute. Anecdotal is when somebody says, yeah, I heard that Joe did this, or you know about one story. So here's a sentence from a letter from Mr. Smith, president of the Land Trust. In addition, I and other members of the Becket Land Trust have regularly led tours for groups of school children, including class tours for children at the Becket Elementary School. Now, you may or may not believe Mr. Smith. You may choose to find him not credible, but that's not anecdotal. That's a summary statement that I believe deserves a lot of weight. And I'm going to not mention right now, maybe it'll come up somewhere else, whether it's appropriate for the chair or any member of the planning board to be seeking additional information outside the public hearing, since getting in touch with people and saying, can you do this, can you do that? You're not investigators. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. And it also means, as far as I'm concerned, you don't go to people's websites and start poking around. It's up to the applicant to submit what they want you to see, or other people speaking at the public hearing. Not for you to do your own investigation outside the public hearing and then not bring the information into the public hearing. Totally inappropriate. And one of the things that invites a very negative review by a court. Next point, cannabis and agriculture, whether it's whatever you call it, there's a reason that the legislature said that cannabis growing was not agriculture. that means that a cannabis building is not like a greenhouse used for agriculture. Why? We don't know why. We can assume it's because of odor issues, noise issues, appearance issues, but let's stop analogizing this to a farm greenhouse. It simply isn't. Finally, some towns have adopted a bylaw, which the state allows, whereby you can get consultants and charge it back to the applicant at the applicant's expense. That's the civilized way to deal with consultants so that the neighbors don't have to spend money doing the job of the board. Other planning boards where there is no such bylaw have prevailed upon applicants, and I think you can require it, that they provide a consultant's opinion at their expense. But why this town chose not to do that, I don't know. Maybe none of you remember, but it's a mistake. Now, to say that you're not going to get consultants or pay attention to them or leave hearings open long enough to hear from them just because you don't have a budget for it, I think it's a big mistake. Finally, listening to everything that's said tonight, there are so many errors and inconsistencies in these plans, things that were brought up today partially, but not totally, later documents that render other documents incorrect. What's needed here is a whole new set of documents. And I think the only way to do that is let them withdraw without prejudice if they choose to. Some people wanted to do that the last time. I think that's what should happen this time. Because I think proceeding, we're walking through a minefield. And the last people that it should be blamed on is the neighbors. The neighbors have not filed stuff late. The neighbors have not made procedural errors. The neighbors are the victims here. It's not their fault. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, who do we have left up on?
Adrian?
Adrian? Adrian? Do you want to, would you be willing to speak?
Yeah, let Michael go first.
You want Michael to go first? Okay, Michael, all right.
I
What happened to Michael?
I am here.
It gave the names down. Go ahead.
Okay. Everybody good? Everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Yeah, and listen, I want to say thank you to everyone. Even the folks that are out there are kind of, again, not really for the efforts. I commend your First Amendment rights. I commend your use of your First Amendment. To me, it is absolutely a phenomenal thing. And we will be here until folks feel comfortable to include that board. I apologize personally for all the misinformation that you guys are fed. That misinformation is, a direct result of testimonies of people like Mitchell, Mr. Greenwald there with his statements that 200 feet equals 2 football fields. Folks, 200 feet is 66 yards. That's 1/4 of a football field.
That's a lie.
That's exactly what you said, sir.
It's not a debate here. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Michael
Additionally,
has the floor.
thank you, sir. Additionally, there are no odor complaints, again, something specified by Mr. Greenwald, that have ever been documented on my facility, and I am not addressing any odor issues or complaints out of my facility within Connecticut, where ultimately, again, this is just absolutely misleading information, and I apologize for how much of it you guys are receiving. The reality is that we are not setting a precedence as stated within this meeting equivalently with this opportunity. There was already a site plan that was allocated to the Grow Brothers, only the equivalent distance from the same neighborhood, this exact same quote unquote neighborhood, and that was done previous to this. So that precedence has already been set. And to be quite frank with you, the site plan that we have submitted and the details within that some folks struggle to read, and I understand it's an extraordinary amount of information. And we are available for you to reach out to. As far as the legal counsel of the folks that are attempting to prepare some legal variant, my attorneys will entertain the legal side. If individuals have questions, we have answered every one that has come to us in a rapid manner. But this is, again, not setting any precedents. In fact, the precedences have been set on what site plans are required. And our detailed site plan is exponentially more detailed in every which way, shape, or form. And I apologize again for, the copy and paste factor Leanne and a couple of other folks were referencing out there. As you use material in studies and you commit and partake in studies, oftentimes you don't attempt to rewrite the same information, you reuse information. Much like your consultant who wrote into the board reused literally the exact quotes that he used in, I think, in my accounting with just a simple Google search, word for word verbatim on how he feels our design is inadequate, verbatim, and he has testified and been in other town meetings. It was a copy and paste. What he sent to you, that it was inadequate, that is an opinion of someone who is trying to sell their consulting work. We consult and have discussed this. We, in fact, did have testimonies. So someone asked the question very specifically about our neighbors. Our neighbors spoke here last week. Actually, one of our employees spoke here last week. All of my partners have been a part of these conversations. And these neighbors of mine, one of them spoke not only very highly of us, but she's one of the 44 farmers that we're helping within the state. Those are our neighbors. And so if you're worried about neighbors or the variant with neighbors, I think we had plenty of testimony, and I don't think we need to ask my neighbors for much more. At this point, I've actually asked most of my friends to stop sending in letters, like the foundation that I helped to form and have sat on the board for years upon years that was in a Berkshire Edge article letter to the editor. And again, I asked most of the people that I'm involved with to not necessarily bother themselves. In fact, some of those folks are on the line tonight if there are questions to speak to our character. And so, yes, our neighbors are great friends. And of course, there are some times where you have someone within that circle who you don't get along with, but we take good care of everyone who's around us. Let's just take a step into odor. I understand your concerns around odors, folks. I really do. And we've done everything we can to add into the community host agreement odor mitigation, not only odor mitigation, but legally what we're being bound to and to accomplish. And we actually added that into that community host agreement because we had a discussion here at the town meeting and came to a consensus on what would satisfy, I believe, the person who was leading the charge for your group at the time on smell issues. And that's where we agreed to the olfactometer and the technology that you asked us to include. As far as our submission, our submissions and the timelines, our submissions have been submitted 2 weeks ahead on everything that's been out there with the exception of these two components, which at the end of the day, I'll let Brian speak to as far as the building. The reality is we have always said this was a greenhouse. From day one, folks, the design has never changed. It's a greenhouse with a head house. The understanding of what that is, we gave tours of people from the town. It has never changed. Some people might call it a quote unquote building because right now we are abiding by building specifications. This is a greenhouse and it is very like the other greenhouses that are within the farmland that we are adjacent to. Our adjacent properties are that of woods and farmland. And yes, we are connected, or some of the property has connection to other property that connects up to a cul-de-sac, but that's not the neighborhood or the street view that you get. And so we are really trying to accommodate that. We added a budget to include doing site and making sure that the landscaping matches and looks right. And I think we actually detailed that not only in our site plan, but in our design. We have moved the building initially because of the fact that you folks were concerned with the smell and the odor from the field. We have now removed the field. And there is zero smell emissions that comes from our greenhouse. It can't be any better than that, you guys. It literally cannot. I can't say that any different. Your concerns around smell, we got rid of the field. It is now 100% odor controlled. And so I really hope that that satisfies you and everyone can understand the simplicity of that statement. The additional movement of that greenhouse's placement was to accommodate just the things you're talking about as far as those wetlands. And we have a lot of pages of documentation on protecting those wetlands. It was a massive concern and something that our engineer took total whole heart in. And yes, we will continue to work along the way that the town's bylaws say that we need to work and work with the appropriate commissions. Additionally, the questions of whether our site plan was reviewed by the fire and police department. Our security team, which is a third-party contracting organization, felt that there was absolutely no need for a security change. There is no change to security. All areas were already being cameraed and patrolled, and it does not impact that security whatsoever and doesn't require us actually go burdening the police chief who's already signed off on our security plan. Ultimately, we've specified it before. We started this process a good year and a half ago. The technology is being utilized for some of these newer innovations. We've provided the tear sheets that come with our air system, our air handler, which we've gone into detail to discuss the very specific decibels, the noise that's going to be created. We actually explained to you how many decibels that were. Our generator we discussed. They were less than a vacuum cleaner. And so we've gone through this in detail with you folks on sound and potential sound pollution. And the reality is at the time it matched what the questions were. And I'm afraid that some people that join late in all of this don't end up getting all of the information from the previous sessions. And I really do. Again, I apologize for that. I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of information to kind of parse through. But technologies change. And our commitment to technology will be at the time of innovations that are then, and it will be based off of the research. Mr. Greenwald also specified a need for expertise. Look, if there's a company out there who's the leading bleeding edge, and all of the greenhouse vendors say that this is the leading bleeding edge, and we look at the data, and the data defines that it's the leading bleeding edge, that's why we buy our computers from IBM and from Dell. Right? That's the reason these companies exist in the industry, and they are the leaders in the industry. If their technology doesn't work, well, then it actually ends up punching us in the nose and we'll have to utilize another technology. But that's part of having a working plan, folks. We will consistently work with the plan or work with the town on and remediating issues as we go, hands down. The oral comments, I think I covered that. We had plenty of oral comments from folks that, again, were our neighbors and employees, and letters have been written to the town on charities and other folks that we've worked with, and I think we're good there. The height and elevation of the buildings, I understand, is a difficult thing for you guys to visualize. And again, I'll let Brian discuss, what the requirement really is from the town's bylaws. A lot of what my suggestion would be is that maybe you folks show up to the next meeting around the bylaws and help them to build these bylaws so it provides you with a visual. If that is something that the town is asking for, and I think there's a lot of good things to learn from what the town is asking for in these meetings. And I do think that new bylaws and meetings will be had to form bylaws. And I hope you use your First Amendment rights there too. I really hope you bring some of these concerns to add value to those bylaws and get involved with the town as some of these new, I'm sure, meetings will entail. The CCC application, again, was a complete incorrect statement. It is an application that is filed in public knowledge, and I am not going to necessarily help someone to find that information who you guys hired to do such, and I'll let my attorney talk to that. But the CCC application is filed and it's in place. And anyway, I think there's enough said on that. As far as moving in a consultant, the reality is where the town sees fit to bring in people. That's a lot of what that 3% that comes out of what our sales are, and can be used for any impact that's there. That taxation that's added to the town is really built in as a buffer for that. As far as needing a consultant, we don't feel we need a consultant in any way, shape, or form. I think we've been able to not only show the folks in the town who've come to different locations to see, but we help other farmers to solve these problems, not only in the state of Connecticut, but in other places. And again, this is well documented. We sit on the council of the Connecticut Industrial Hemp Association. And I know in the last session, somebody had made the statement that all of our credibility is around hemp. A cannabis plant is a cannabis plant. They all produce one molecule that is called CBG. That CBG plant that molecule converts to either THC, CBD, or CBC. They all start as the exact same plant. That molecule converts over time based on the enzymes, the grow conditions, and the genetics of the plant. And if the THC has been bred out of it, that is hemp. Those are the only differences. So for everybody that's out there that might not know, it's probably a fact that got lost. It was covered in the beginning. These are the exact same plants, folks. The hemp field that's down the road from our location that doesn't require anything, their plant is the exact same smelling plant. The difference is that molecule, CBG, has not converted to THC, it's converted to CBD. And that's why our expertise in hemp, literally from 2015 with, again, I state 3 to 4 different major universities who are offering educations based off of our greenhouses. That's why they're there. So anyway, I'll stop with that. I think with that, I will concede to Brian. And Brian, if you just want to go ahead and touch base on the height requirements, if you feel you need to, and then pass that off to our legal counsel. And I appreciate your time, folks. Again, I look forward to the future with you.
All right. Brian, do you want to speak, or
I don't really feel the need to speak. I mean, you have the full-on elevation set that was produced by the greenhouse company. It gives all the specifications of the building. I'd pass it to Adrian.
What?
Adrian?
Well, I mean, we going to Adrian? I mean, he's mentioned
Or Brandon. Brian, Adrian or Brandon? Who would you like to speak first, Brian?
If Brandon feels like he needs to make a comment.
Yeah, hi, Chairman Brendan Sleen here on behalf of Tech to Ag Tech. Again, thank you for everyone's time and diligence. Obviously, tonight there was a lot of emotion involved, and a lot of people have put a lot of time, effort, and energy in reviewing my clients' plans. I just want to speak. My clients have been at this for 14 months now. Dozens of planning board meetings, several meetings before, other meetings before the town, negotiating a community host agreement, which does have binding obligations continuing onto my clients. And, having worked with the board diligently in order to come up with these revised plans that were submitted for review, I do think it's appropriate at this time for the board to now close the public hearing and move on to deliberations. Frankly, my clients have waited for a significant period of time to get to this point and have heard and addressed significantly several of the citizens' concerns surrounding, and really changed their entire business model in a sense to acquiesce to the citizens' concerns. So while understanding that this was an emotional process for the town, and frankly, I'm newer to the case than everyone else is, but I will say that based on my review of everything, that my clients are have been more than willing to bend over backwards to really address a lot of the major issues that were concerning to the town. With that, I'll stop. Thanks.
Thank you. And I guess we're now going to go to Adrian. All right.
Good evening, everybody. This is Josh Schwartzbeck. I'm Adrian's husband, for those of you that don't know. I've been sitting quietly here for about the past year and a quarter. And I have been very surprised by the dynamics that have occurred. Opposition seems to exist from primarily two enclaves, Skyline Ridge and Indian Lakes, who have attacked the credibility not only of us, but of the town fathers and of the voters with half-truths and outright lies. Every time I hear a description of the quarry, I wonder what kind of fantasy world that those people are living in. You're treating our town as if it's some kind of a theme park created just for you. Your fantasy is that the quarry is some kind of educational wonder. That might have been true to some extent in 2002, 2003, 2004, but no longer. Your fantasy is that the project is going to impact your water. What's the name of one of your enclaves? Indian what? I think that's Indian Lakes. Maybe the misguided idea that you own this area goes back to the quarry. The real story, not the ILA legend. The quarry story, Labrie started this thing to turn it into an aggregate mine in 1999 and 2000. The Metcalf family took the lead with the ILA in the background. We negotiated a deal after many months with a representative of John Cassio, who owned the property. We went to the ILA with the deal, and they took it from there. The first few years, the Land Trust did a good job of creating an outdoor museum, hiking trails, and they probably had student groups come up there in 2001, 2002, 2003. Many volunteers, minor problems at that time. However, at some point, the quarry was discovered by some enterprising young person who found out that the historic quarry was one of the best places in the country for quarry jumping. Things went rapidly downhill from there. When a law enforcement official was asked recently if the quarry had student groups come there, his reply was, yeah, like Miami Beach on spring break. Becket Land Trust had to pay $200,000 to the trustees of the reservations to take the quarry off their hands. Now, we began this project in 2017 with Brian Vincent and his brother, and we were accepted by the town with a very friendly dynamic of appreciation. In fact, we were invited to help write the bylaws, the marijuana bylaws, by the planning board and by others in this town. At that time, there was even a planning board member that was from Indian Lakes. So we started this dynamic, as I said, with no objections. We had to withdraw, but we did restart it in January 2021. I thought it would be cool. We'd just send out abutters letters to everybody that abutted our 97 acres. Boy, were we naive. We were met with anger and a deep hostility. Objectors reacted like we were putting a toxic waste dump in their front yard. Let's put things in perspective. The planning board has received approximately 160 letters, many of which are duplicates, both for and against us. According to one of your residents, ILA has 102 homes and 64 undeveloped lots. I wonder how much water they might use. There are 825 households in Greater Becket. There are approximately 1,900 residents in Becket, 1,687 of which are voters. The planning board has received 160 letters from only 17 registered Becket voters. Around 20 were for the project, 4 were neutral, and the rest were part-time residents. Becket residents supported medical marijuana by the second largest percentage in Massachusetts. Ballot question number 4, which legalized recreational marijuana in 2016, was approved by a greater than 2-to-1 margin by Becket voters. It's the highest approval percentage in all of Berkshire County. You know, you talk about distances from the project, and most of the neighborhoods, what is the definition of a neighborhood after all? What is the distance from the project? The closest houses on Quarry Road, that one person that has complained, is 2,794 feet away. Another person who I believe is a member of the planning board is 1,780 feet away, and that's the closest. The cul-de-sac is 2,289 feet away. One point on Valley View, where one house is 3,440 feet, and a second house is 4,096 feet. Indian Lakes, Quarry Bonnie Rig Junction, 4,682 feet. Bonnie Rig in Seneca, 5,220 feet. Iroquois and Chippewa, 6,208 feet. Bonnie Rig in Moberg, 6,559 feet. And the bottom of Bonnie Rig Hill Road is 8,724 feet. Folks, your levels of entitlement seem amazing. You seem to have no idea of the levels of animosity you're creating within your own enclaves, as well as the town in general. It's been stated in letters to the board that they believe that they are the main support of the whole town. Your taxes must pay for everything. So if you all have extra, I'd like mine back. As I stated earlier, they believe that Becket is their private nature theme park, a theme park where the rest of the town is there to provide them with all of their needs, where they can pretend they're self-sufficient. We mow their lawns, plow their driveways, fix the things they break, grow their food, because they don't know how to live in a rural area self-sufficiently. You seem to have no idea, or you just don't care about the animosity you're creating in your enclaves and in the town as a whole, or the thankless work you have foisted upon the town fathers with your attitudes like, you must do the work of the planning board because those country bumpkins aren't bright enough to be left unsupervised to make an informed decision. You believe you pay for most of the town's budget. The money and jobs for the town are secondary to your wishes or not even on your radar. And rights? I have a right to turn this farm into a pig farm if I want. I'm afraid that this looks very much like the elite against the rest of the town. It feels like they are treating us, planning board included, like the portables. Do the right thing.
Thank you. All right, we have a couple of people that have had their hands raised, and I don't know whether they had a chance to speak already or not. Did they?
Lori Thomas hasn't spoken yet.
Lori, I'll give you your time to speak. Okay.
Thank you. I too have sat somewhat quietly through many, many months of these meetings. And I need to speak now and say that the description of Indian Lakes as an enclave, using the term "you people," referring to us in language that only fuels this tension between what Josh is referring to and our need for protection of our community is completely inappropriate. I stand as the president of the Indian Lakes Association to let you all know that what we have been seeking since day one, which yes, was 14 months ago, we have been seeking language that will protect our communities, all of the communities, not just Indian Lakes, the people who live on Quarry Road, the people who live on the other side of our community. We are looking for language and action that protects us, that protects all of us, Josh, not just those people. And when I hear the phrase, those people, my hackles go up. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but I resent it. I will tell you that the Indian Lakes Association cares very much about the entire area. And what we continue to seek, Mr. Ronzio and other members of the board, is language that is enforceable and that protects us all. That is all of Becket. Thank you for the time to express this.
I just have one question for the board.
If you've already spoken, okay, I informed everybody that we're gonna go, Mitch, I've already given an exception to and let him speak, but I wanted to hear from people who had never spoken and, you know.
I just have one question for the board.
I mean, I understand the position, and Indian Lakes, President of Indian Lakes had in responding to that.
Yeah.
I thank you very much for your input, but, you know.
What are they saying? Anything?
Something absolutely new.
She said she has just one question for the board.
All right, question for the board, go ahead.
Yes, my question to the board is, you told us to trust you, so I'm taking that we're going to trust you to take care of the welfare of the surrounding neighborhoods. My question is, what action will be taking if tetrahydrous odor mitigation technology does not work and odors are released into the neighborhoods?
That has been spelled out completely in the host community agreement with the select board, okay? That they would shut the operation down.
Okay, you're gonna shut the operation down then if odors are released into the neighborhood.
You listen, it was the ILA, or at least representatives from the ILA, who went specifically to the select board and insisted that they include that language. They didn't come to the planning board. They were trying to do something else. And I don't know, to this day, I still don't understand how that agreement was incorporated into the host community agreement, which is basically a financial document. But anyways, okay. If that's in there and they have agreed, and Tetrahydra AgTech has agreed to that, which I believe they have, then that's the enforcement. You know, the planning board isn't a police organization, okay? If there are gonna be complaints, we have in the town of Becket, if you look at our zoning bylaws, we have a code enforcer, okay? And that happens to be the building inspector. Now, the current building inspector, I guess, is gonna be retiring within a month or so.
The end of March.
The end of March, okay? And so we'll have a new building inspector, but that's his job, and that's in the zoning bylaws. If there are complaints, you don't come to the planning board to say, what are you gonna do? We don't do that, okay? That is allocated directly to the code enforcer, okay? A lot of people, take advantage of that. They write them a letter and they basically say, this is the problem that I have. Or if they don't want to wait for a letter, then they use an email, or they get on the phone and they call them directly. But specifically, the current building inspector will not act on any complaint until it is put in writing and signed, okay? And that is also in the bylaw. The planning board is not an enforcing agent. That is clear.
No, I realize that, but I just wanted something in writing. What will happen if their odors are released into the neighborhood? Because it's really a major concern. I think it's, besides the wetlands.
Specified in the host community agreement.
But it's not in there. I didn't read anything that they would shut them down if the odors are released.
You read the document, okay? Thank you very much.
I read it. All right, okay.
Is there somebody else? Nobody else, okay?
Donna Schaefer, Jim spoke earlier, Donna didn't speak.
Donna, you have the floor.
Hi. Yes, I am.
Okay, fine.
I just have a very brief comment. I am a full-time resident of Becket, and I love it. And I'm the grandmother of 4 grandchildren who absolutely, their favorite place to hike is the Becket Quarry. And I just want to make sure that Becket takes care of the natural beauty of this area and that it's preserved. Families, not just school people or teenagers, greatly enjoy this area now. I'm there all the time, and I just want to make sure that it's preserved the way it should be. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, members of the planning board, it is now 8. What do you have? What do you have for time? 8:35. Okay, at 8:35, I'm proposing that someone make a motion to close the public hearing. All right. Wait. You have to make the motion. Okay.
Make a motion to close the public meeting. Now, is the question, is that,
Wait, you have to wait till it's seconded, then we can discuss it, okay? Do we have a second to that?
Second.
All right, the motion has been made by Alvin Blake, the motion that has been seconded by Ann Crowett. Okay, is there any discussion, any further discussion on that?
I'm curious if that is are we suspending or closing? Are we voting to close as in, that's all, folks? Or are we?
That's
voting to
right. So
suspend?
we will have taken in all of the information from the public in the public input phase of the deliberations, and then we move into a decision phase. Okay, the decision phase, right? I gave you a document today that basically outlines the decision phase. Okay, we have 90 days from today's date, if we close this hearing, to render a decision, okay? And during that time, the board will continue to discuss this matter at whatever meetings we have, or additional meetings that we may have. And then once we conclude and we feel that we're ready to vote, then I will call for the vote. All right, when I call for the vote, all right, and there may be stipulations, okay, that you may have wanted to include in that decision process. Once we've aggregated all of that together, then I will call for the vote and we will vote. If 4 people on the planning board vote in favor of this, then the motion passes and the special permit is in fact approved, okay? But it's not finished, okay?
Of course.
At that point in time, there's a 20-day, well, there's a period where it has to be sent over to the town clerk. And then once the town clerk receives it, it's 20 days, there's 20 days to a decision date. If someone decides that they want to appeal the decision, then they have to do so. After that 20-day period, the appeal period closes, okay?
The appeals go through Superior Court, though, not to
Right,
town clerk.
the appeals go directly to the Superior Court, not back to the town or the planning board. The last time this happened, there was an appeal on the, yeah, you can have one of those. There was let's see, what was it called? The Ipswich Pharmaceutical retail facility at the corner of 2727, all right, located at 2727 Jacobs Ladder Road and at the corner of Route 8 and 20. Okay, that was appealed by an individual. Okay,
correct. I remember that one.
All right, it took 6 months, and then after 6 months, that person realized the error that they had made and withdrew the decision. The courts then returned it back to the planning board. The appeal period was closed, and the special permit was granted to the individual. Now, unfortunately, the individual in that 6-month period basically had committed to other projects, and that's why that special permit is still open. All right, you know, we have the same thing with the first cannabis the cannabis grow facility that we approved for the Grow Boys LLC, and over on the other side. And if you look at the distances, all right, some of those distances were similar to what you see here. You know, we only had one, was it one or two individuals? One individual complained about odor, okay?
First,
Huh?
there was one abutter that complained, and then there was nobody. The guy who owns all of the property.
Right.
Said that, so there was something.
So there was, you know, and again, notice was given to everybody in the town. You know, and no one else objected. And so the permit was approved, all right, based on those facts. This case is different. There were cases in the past where applicants actually withdrew. The initial Grow Boy facility, which was on Route 20, which was going to be located about 50 feet or maybe 100 feet from a house next door, the Grow Boys realized that the error that they had made, they had spent a considerable amount of money putting plans together, which they presented to the board, and we then allowed them to withdraw without prejudice, and they submitted the application over on Tanglewood Circle. We had another applicant who came in and never actually got to submit the thing. It was Black Cat LCC, which was over on Benton Hill Road, okay? And that guy decided to withdraw when he got some pushback from the select board, and when he was drafting his host community agreement. Okay.
Is there a motion on the floor?
He ended up withdrawing.
Howard asked if there's a motion on the floor.
Fine. Yes, there is a motion on the floor, Howard. Okay. Do you want to call for the vote?
Absolutely.
Fine, okay, so at this point in time, we're gonna call for the vote. It's a roll call vote, okay? You need to state your name and then tell me how you're gonna vote. Who would like to go first?
Al Blake, aye.
Al Blake votes aye.
Ann Crowett, aye.
Ann Crowett votes aye.
James Levy votes aye.
Dr. Lerner, how do you vote?
Howard Lerner votes aye.
Bob Ronzio votes aye. It's unanimous, okay? So the public hearing is closed, okay? We will move into the deliberative phase, and basically this discussion will continue at that meeting, and it will be the board discussing it. That's the start of the cycle, and how long it will take us to actually render a decision, I don't know, but we do have time to do that. And I thank you all for I thank the public for all of their input. We have considerable amount of material to go through now that we've received it all, and you know, we'll hopefully we will be able to do this, come to some kind of a conclusion in the near future rather than the far.
We have so much else to deal with.
We have the board has a lot of other things, and for those of you who are out there, there is an application that is coming before us, and it's a glamping facility. For those of you, that's glorified camping. It's on a 50-acre site up by where the Dreamaway Lodge was, and they're planning on operating a facility up there. I was told today that there are roughly 240 parking spaces. Wow. All right, and this is not like the one that occurred over in Hinsdale, where people were going to be bringing in their own campers and trailers. Basically, people will be able to come there, and the sites are all pre-set up. They'll have independent water and sewage facilities, and you know, people will come and use these glorified, what are they, tents? Is it a tent? There's some cabins, I guess.
Some trailer kind of thing.
Right, but it's all fixed. In other words, it's yeah.
I move for adjournment.
Howard moves to adjourn.
All right, well, Howard, before there's adjournment, we do have public input, and this would be on anything. Huh?
That's already happened, really, hasn't it?
Well, I know, but this would be on anything other than the tetrahydra.
Well, that's the only thing on the agenda.
Well, no, public input is on the agenda. Is there anybody that wants to speak on something other than the application? Hearing none, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the last item on the agenda, which is adjournment. All right, Dr. Lerner, you made a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
All right, do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
All right, that motion has been seconded by James Levy. Okay, any discussion? I don't think we're gonna hear any. All right, we not hearing any discussion. We're gonna call for the vote. How do you vote? Al Blake votes aye.
Ann Crowd, aye.
Ann Crowd, aye. James?
James Levy, aye.
All right, Howard?
Howard Lerner, aye.
All right, Bob Ronzio, aye. That concludes this meeting, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:45.
And our next meeting will be
March 9th.
Our next meeting is March 9th, Wednesday, March 9th at 6 o'clock here in this very same facility. Oh, and I know this is, just so that everybody knows, the governor extended this type of meeting until July 15th. So we are going to be, we're going to be in a remote status, all right, and just the board members will be here until July, okay? And then after that, it's up to the state as to what they plan on doing. At the same time that they approved the continuation of this type of meeting for various boards, they are also considering the annual town meeting. Annual town meeting is more than likely going to be done remotely, okay? It's all specified. There's a lot of information about how it's done. It's probably five or six pages
Probably have to
long.
get certified.
Huh?
Probably have to get certified just out of time.
Well, that's it's really interesting. I mean, obviously the state.
Night.
Good night.
Good night,
Thank
Howard.
you for coming, Howard.